Greetings, my friends. Evangelist Joey Bellmore here once again for another Signs of the Times report. And in this report, we're going to focus on some of the earth changes going on around the world that line up with what the biblical scriptures say would happen in the end times before Jesus' return. And a lot of these signs Jesus mentioned in Matthew 24, and they are mentioned in other scriptures as well. But we're going to start, as we always do, with the earthquakes. And we're going to go over some of the most recent earthquakes in diverse places since my last report. And starting with this piece, talking about a magnitude 5.3 earthquake that struck over in eastern Taiwan. There was also a 5 magnitude earthquake that struck central Turkey, and praise God, no casualties were reported. There was also a 5.0 magnitude earthquake that occurred down in the South Pacific near the Fiji Islands, according to the U.S. Geological Survey report. And over here on the Manila Bulletin, we see that there was a 4.9 earthquake that shook Davao over in the Philippines. Over in Iceland, at a volcanic caldera, there were a couple earthquakes detected over there, and both measured 3.2 on the Richter scale, as we see here in this report. And they happened down in the southeastern part of the Barabanga caldera. And this is a stratovolcano located below a Vatnajökull glacier, which is Iceland's largest ice cap. And the globe just continues to shake. As we see here, another 5.0 magnitude earthquake was registered down near the Solomon Islands. A little bit more powerful seismic activity here with a 6.9 magnitude earthquake that occurred just off the coast of the Philippines. Another 6+ magnitude earthquake here that was recorded just off the Japanese coast. And in this report, we see a 4.6 magnitude earthquake that struck Iran, and the tremors were felt all the way in Azerbaijan at 3.0 magnitude, as we see here in this piece. Here is a 5.9 magnitude earthquake that was reported and recorded in the southern Indian Ocean along the southwest Indian Ridge. Another 5.1 magnitude earthquake reported here. This one registered just off the coast of Indonesia, or just outside of Indonesia, if you will, northwest of Tabelo. Here we see a report of a 5.6 magnitude earthquake which jolted parts of Pakistan and Afghanistan in the late hours of Tuesday, according to this report here. And a whole lot of shaking going on around the world is right. Another report here, this one, a 5.8 magnitude earthquake, recorded just northwest of Tonga. Just south of Arica, Chile, we see that there were reports of a 5.0 magnitude earthquake, which was recorded there. And in this article from RT, we see that a strong 6.7 magnitude earthquake struck southeast of Japan's northern island of Hokkaido, according to the country's meteorological agency. And down in Santa Cruz, Bolivia, just southwest of Charagua, we see that there was a 6.1 magnitude earthquake recorded there. And before we move on to anything else, as I always do, I'm going to slide over here to the European Mediterranean Seismological Center website and look at the latest earthquakes from around the world that are magnitude 4 or greater that may have happened in the past 24 hours. And we see here that there were multiple earthquakes reported, and you can see them all here. There was a 5.2 in La Rioja, Argentina. There was a 4.7 over in the Iceland region, as well as a 4.5, so a couple significant quakes over there in Iceland, and a 5.1 down in the Fiji region, as you see there. There was also a 5.2 in southern Sumatra, Indonesia, 5.0 in the Solomon Islands, and of course a 5.5 in Seram, Indonesia. And that's about all we have in terms of significant seismic activity there. So we'll go ahead and we'll move along here. But as usual, everything will be linked up below in the description box for you guys. And It's important to remember that Jesus said that this would be one of the signs that would precede his coming in Matthew 24. He said that there would be earthquakes in diverse places. And I would presume that, these earthquakes are only going to intensify as we grow closer and closer to that great day, my friends. And so moving on, we see in this piece here from ABC News, a local news agency out of La Jolla, California, that a large sinkhole developed over there near the seawall. And I'll link you up to this piece. There's news coverage on it where they show you a little bit of footage. But it goes on to say here that a large sinkhole developed near a seawall in the La Jolla Shores area Thursday morning after a series of storms pummeled the region. The 10-foot wide sinkhole developed sometime before 5 a.m. at the bottom of the Avenida de la Playa and Camino del Oro across from the La Jolla Beach and Tennis Club. So it mentions that both City of San Diego and San Diego Gas and Electric crews were on the scene working to repair it. Apparently they're going to have to build a new gas line to divert service in the area away from the hole. That's how significant this is and how serious it's become. And it says because of the tide flowing in and the next storm coming Friday as well, that city crews may not be able to start repairs until later this week. And I'll link you up to this, and they'll show you all kinds of footage of this thing in the news report there, so I'll link you guys up to that. Moving along here, I want to report on some volcanicity or volcanic activity as the Chilean volcano in Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula erupted once again on Sunday as the volcano's activity continues to grow, potentially leading to a major eruption. These seismologists and volcanologists have came out and warned. And it says here, could this be the big one, as the major Russian volcano has erupted again? And from Russia, we go over to some volcanic activity down in Indonesia as a strong eruption at the Soputan volcano was recorded. And apparently the ash plumes were over 4 kilometers high. And it says here, a powerful explosive eruption occurred at the volcano during the 4th to the 6th of January. It began with a series of at least 4 powerful explosions. And it says here that they were producing tall ash plumes that rose 4 to 6 kilometers above the volcano and drifted north. And it mentions how at least some of the explosions also triggered pyroclastic flows reaching the southern base of the summit cone. Moderately strong ashfall of 1 to 2 centimeters occurred in villages about 10 kilometers to the northeast of the volcano. Apart from significant damage to farmland because of the ash cover, apparently there were no injuries or damage to infrastructure that was reported. The only thing was that the airport of Manado had to be closed for a couple days. So, hey, that's as long as no one was hurt, that's a good thing. And there's footage here, and I'll just go ahead and play that for you just so you can see a little bit of it here. Some pretty powerful imagery here in this footage. And this is the footage of this volcanic eruption. And I'll just kind of fly through it here for the sake of time. Got a lot to get to, as usual. Lots of stuff going on all around the world, and such a great shot there. And there's other footage here of it, of course, that you can check out. And you can see the ash plume rising up into the sky there. So I'll link you up to the piece so you can check it out for yourself. And another bit of volcanicity to report on here, down at Mount Egon volcano as it was rattling in Flores Island in Indonesia. As it talks about it here, as residents living around the base of Indonesia's Mount Egon were ordered to evacuate as the Flores Island volcano began to rumble because of rising magma. It says a 2-mile exclusion zone was established around the 4,487-foot volcano, which last erupted in 2008, forcing more than 10,000 people to flee. It says here, that Egon is the only one of 6 volcanoes in Indonesia currently on an alert of 3 or 4 that is not currently erupting. The vast archipelago has 127 active volcanoes, more than any other country on the planet. Meanwhile, over here on volcanodiscovery.com for a live look-in on the volcanic situation around the world, and on this interactive map here, you can see the color codings, and you can see that the yellow are the ones that are experiencing unrest. The orange are under a warning or experiencing minor activity, and the red are in full-out eruption. And if I were to zoom in, you would see there's many volcanoes, for instance, right here, there's probably 4 or 5 volcanoes just under there, not including those yellow ones here. So you can see all around the globe we're experiencing an uptick in volcanicity as well. And this is a great site. You can come here and you can kind of click on each volcano and learn about it and see its history and its latest activity and whether or not it's on alert or not. But you can see here clearly that the Ring of Fire, obviously living up to its name around the Pacific Ocean there, with all the volcanic eruption going on there. And so you can see the activity around the globe there. I'll link you guys up to that as well. This is another piece I wanted to link you guys up with, as a giant 1,000-foot water spout was photographed near Sydney, Australia. And when we read here, it says, incredible photos show the terrifying moment a yacht is forced to flee for safety after this giant 1,000-foot water spout rises up from the sea. And it talks a little bit more about that here. You can see the breathtaking footage of this thing here. As it looks pretty powerful, and you can see this little yacht here dangerously close to this massive thing, and had to flee. And there's all kinds of photos here talking about it, and I don't believe there's any footage. However, there are photos, and I'll link you up to the piece, but everybody was safe and made it out of there, but certainly a scary experience for the people on that yacht. This was really crazy, and I wanted to share it with you guys, as this driver showed really quick thinking as he sees this oncoming flood on a highway down in Ventura County, California. And because of his quick thinking, he may have saved himself from going for a little ride. And it says here, the incredible moment that Mark Shigaris saw the floodwaters could have been a terrible incident, but he kept calm and carried on. And I'll go ahead and play the footage for you here. And you can see the floods starting to come down here, but watch what happens. He notices the flood coming and he says, whoop, time to reverse. And you can see it just coming down the side of the road here and just engulfing the road, and stuff like this can just wash out highways and cause massive sinkholes, and it could have, that could have been life-threatening. In fact, I'm sure it was, but because of his quick thinking, he handled it very well and got himself out of trouble there. And you can see how fast those floodwaters just inundated that highway. And speaking of severe flash flooding, here's another report from AccuWeather talking about how massive flooding and mudslides washed over Southern California. And this was reported on last Sunday, January the 10th. And it shows you here a picture of a mud flow skirting a house that was protected with sandbags in Monrovia, California. And this was on Wednesday, January the 6th, 2016. And this has been ongoing, and it says here it has been a stormy week across California, with several El Nino-enhanced storms slamming the state, resulting in widespread flooding and road closures. Southern California has been one of the areas hit the hardest by the by the train of storms, with inches of rain falling in the major metropolitan areas of Los Angeles and San Diego. And there's footage here, more photos, and it says here mudslides, evacuations, power outages, and even a couple of weak, short-lived tornadoes have also been reported over the past few days. And there's all kinds of footage and stuff like that. So I'll go ahead and link you guys up to that. But here we can take a look at some of the footage quickly here. And you can see here that this guy in his car, he's looking at the hills, and this flooding is just coming down, and more crazy weather phenomenon as the birth pangs continue, or the what many people would call the beginning of sorrows just continues. Another footage here of someone driving through floodwaters, as this is apparently a highway, and you could see the cars, and a great shot from the air here. You can see that the water is just inundating the roads here as cars try to get through. This car had to be pushed through by this cop car. More flooding to report here as floods in Portugal happened after the Mondego, the Douro, and the Tamega rivers had overflowed. And it says here, Portugal's National Civil Protection Authority report that the Douro, Mondego, and Tamega rivers overflowed between the 10th and 11th of January 2016, affecting areas of Porto and Coimbra districts. And it goes on to talk about how 2 separate landslides in Baltar and Paredes municipalities occurred and forced around 10 people from their homes that lived around these landslides. And yesterday there was some surface flooding that had blocked roads in the districts over there, and it mentions about 4 or 5 districts. I'll link you up to the piece here, but some more torrential rains just causing rivers to burst their banks and cause flooding and landslides. There was also heavy rainfall that brought floods down to Sri Lanka and the Maldives. As it says here, heavy rain and storms last week in Sri Lanka have left at least 1 person dead. And may God be with his family in this time of grieving. And it says that there were also around 200 people homeless, as flooding yesterday in the Maldives has also left half the island of Nadella underwater, according to a local political leader's statement that he released. And in the eastern province, flooding on the 7th of January 2015 in the Trincomalee district affected over 8,000 people, destroying houses and partially damaging 50 plus other houses. And people had to be evacuated and so forth, and there were reports of multiple reports of flooding in different districts all around the area. So there's another piece I'll link you up with, as the flooding in many areas around the world just continues. There was also heavy flooding down in Mozambique and Malawi, as tens of thousands were displaced by the flooding over there. And this is a piece from BBC talking about this event. As it mentions here, a major highway in Mozambique has split after 2 bridges collapsed as a result of heavy flooding that has killed 25 people and displaced tens of thousands in the country, officials say. Yet more flooding to tell you about here, as in this instance, down in Parana state in Brazil, 150,000 people were affected by some severe flooding down there. As it says here, the Civil Defense Authority in the Brazilian state of Parana, Defesa Civil do Paraná, if I said that correctly, please excuse my butchering of the pronunciation of that. It says that they've reported that heavy rain between the 9th and 12th of January 2016 has caused widespread flooding in 49 municipalities of the state. The heavy rain also caused several landslides in 5 separate municipalities. According to the latest figures, the floods have affected over 150,000 people and forced over 2,000 to evacuate their homes completely. 5 people have been injured and 1 is still missing. So as of right now, there are no deaths. Praise God for that, but my prayers go out to the people who've, lost their homes and have been affected by this flooding over there. You can see shots of massive roadways washed out because of this, massive sinkholes, and it goes on to mention that the report said that 74 homes have been completely destroyed in one district, leaving 198 people homeless, and a further 10,057 homes have been damaged over there in this particular district. It mentions that a landslide in Campo Largo affected 405 people and displaced 5. Landslides were also reported in Campina Grande do Sul and Fazenda Rio Grande, Santana de la Terre, and Ponta Grossa. And trying my hardest to pronounce those correctly for you guys. And I certainly don't want to disrespect any Brazilians, but my pronunciation certainly isn't the greatest, and I'm sure a lot of you have been following my reports are aware of that, so I apologize for that, but this is certainly tragic circumstances here, and I'll show you some of the footage here of some of this flooding taken by people who are filming this from, what appears to be safer areas that were hit, and so you can see some of this flooding going on there as he walks around and films this, and I think he almost got splashed there. But other footage here. And you can see some of the flooding here as this truck tries to drive through, and I believe it just kind of tips over. If I remember correctly. So here oh my goodness, it fell on people. I didn't even watch this yet, but I just wanted to click play to show you guys some footage, and I hope those people weren't hit by this thing, because that's terrible. You can see other bits of footage here from stuff going on. Oh, I think I skipped something there. There we go. You can see this bus trying to drive through the floodwaters, and you can even see it get carried away. So some pretty severe flooding phenomena going on over there. And you can see that getting washed right off the road there. Right off the road, into the ditch, into the trees. People trying to rush over to help, as you can see. It just gets... Wow. Lord have mercy. I pray nobody was injured here. Some severe things happening in this footage. So you can see massive roadways being washed out here. Massive sinkholes as flooding just washes out roads. And so some pretty dramatic footage there. And it goes on to say here in certain other districts that how over 90,000 of those affected are in the Arapongas municipality near the city of Londrina in the north of the state of Parana. Which it says only 25 people have been displaced there, however, so that's a good thing. But it does mention that in certain districts here, like Rolandia, as many as 1,000 have been displaced, over 9,000 homes have been damaged, and 50 completely destroyed. In total, 36,240 people have been affected by the flooding in that particular district over in Rolandia. And I mean, it gives you all kinds of reports from the different districts. I'm not going to go into each one, but we see there was 27 centimeters of rain in 2 days in a particular district, and in Londrina, they recorded 180 millimeters of rain in 24 hours. You can see more photos here of a bridge just washed right out. And if I were these people, I wouldn't be walking on that thing in the midst of this. And more footage here, more shots of flood damage. So I'll link you up to the piece, and we'll move along here. And here's a piece from the Columbus Dispatch talking about how the wettest years end in a century for the United States predicts woes for the 2016 crops. And this is one of the signs of the end times that Jesus mentioned, that there would be famine. So we're going to see more and more instances of different things taking place that affect crops, if you will, and lead to food shortages and these type of things. And the piece here goes on to say that in the final 2 months of 2015, U.S. farmland got the most rain since 1895, a sign that national corn and soybean fields will shrink in 2016 as the strongest El Nino on record ebbs and T-storm weather sets. And it says here, since 1960, there have been 9 wet finishes to a year that were followed 6 times in the next season by reduced yields. In 5 of those instances, 1974, 1983, 1988, 1993, and 2012, corn yields were 15 to 33 bushels an acre below the trend since 1960. And this is according to reports from people over there. So I'll link you up to the piece that goes on to talk about it a little more, but we see the wettest years end in a century to impact the crop season in 2016. And from the wettest end of a season in over a century, we go to a South African heat wave that has apparently claimed 11 lives. May the Lord be with those families, as my prayers and condolences go out to them who lost loved ones. And it mentions how dam levels are plunging 30%, which is huge. And it mentions here that South African health officials said 11 people have died of heat stroke after a week-long heat wave across the country. Provincial spokesman Tebogo Legethwani said Sunday, January the 10th, that 8 people died on January the 7th as temperatures passed 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit in the Northwest Province. 3 more people died on January the 8th, and 16 others were hospitalized. And so the Weather Service came out and they warned that high temperatures may give way to severe thunderstorms in the coming week. And it was also reported in neighboring Namibia that the Namibian Press Association released a report that severe storms damaged 31 houses, affecting nearly 100 people in recent weeks. And parts of southern Africa are experiencing a drought due to the El Nino weather phenomenon. And drought and famines and plagues and pestilences are all part of the signs of the times that Jesus spoke of that would precede his second coming. Speaking of drought, in South Africa, they've suffered their driest year on record in 2015, and this is also threatening food security. So we're seeing drought and famine once again being a consistent theme. And again, my friends, I'll link you up to it, but it's just more signs of the times here, as this is the driest year on record over there. It was 2015 in South Africa. Meanwhile, Devon residents are alarmed as apparently the beach disappeared overnight over there, as it says here. Alarm as beach that has protected Devon residents from storms for generations disappears overnight. And it says here that there are thousands of tons of shingle that have been gouged out from Hall Sands Beach. And it says an ancient peat base layer has been left behind, but it is being rapidly eroded, And the government came out and stated that they cannot give any funds to protect that area of the Devon coast. So we see here, it talks more about how the picturesque Devonshire coast are enduring sleepless nights as a beach that has protected them for generations disappears overnight. Storms have battered the hull sands in Devon, gouging out thousands of tons of sand and shingle, leaving only a base layer of ancient peat behind. And you can see a shot of it here. Pretty crazy stuff. And the peat apparently is rapidly eroding, and local councilors have warned that the whole of the exposed east-facing coast of that corner of the country is under threat. And apparently this thing could just be washed right away. And you can see here, this is what it looked like, I presume. This is a postcard scene from 2014. And then you look here, and this is what it looks like now. So, again, some pretty crazy stuff, and people are rather alarmed with what's going on over there. And there's video footage here of what's going on, and I'll link you guys up to that. But definitely some devastating stuff for the people over there living by the coast there in the hull sands. And if you remember, I had reported in a recent report not too long ago about the crazy wildfire season that was in the U.S. in 2015. And this piece talks about how that crazy wildfire season in the U.S. is similar to what Australia is going through now. As it says here, 2015 was a record hot and fiery year, but it may not get to keep the title for long. While the American West is still reeling from a devastating wildfire season, Australia's pyrotechnic woes are just getting started. Over the past few years, persistent drought conditions have transformed vast swaths of southern Australia into a tinderbox. But thanks to an unsavory combination of El Nino and, well, what they call here global warming. They can call it what they want. El Nino, global warming, whatever. A lot of this, I mean, when you look into it, obviously, global warming is just another method they're going to use to create a global tax. And it's one of the methods that's going to lead to a global government. One of the many things that's going to be, one of the many cards that will be played by these elite, if you will. And global warming, if you really look at the facts, the Earth is actually going through a global cooling cycle. But anyhow, I digress on that. Whatever they want to call it, El Nino, global warming, the Bible and the Word of God, it says that it's the beginning of sorrows, the birth pangs. And that's what I call it. And it says here, because of this combination, that this year's spring was exceptionally hot and dry over there. And in November, the Australian government issued one of the grimmest fire season outlooks in recent memory. And now, our planet is making good on that prediction. It says here, on January the 6th, the lightning strike triggered a bushfire in Lane Pool Reserve, located near the city of Perth in southwest Australia. With plenty of fuel on the ground, the blaze spread quickly, engulfing the nearby town of Yarloop and destroying at least 128 homes and 41 other structures, according to the Department of Fire and Emergency Services. As of yesterday, the fire had burned through a whopping 276 square miles, or 177,000 acres, placing it on par with the largest blazes to hit North America this past summer. In fact, the fire was so vicious that it created its own weather system, a pyrocumulus fire cloud, captured by the Visible Infrared Imaging radiometer suite on NASA's Suomi NPP satellite on January the 7th. Pyrocumulus clouds are similar in appearance to other cumulus clouds. The difference, experts explain, is that the heat forcing air to rise doesn't come from thermal radiation, but from, you guessed it, fire. And it's pretty crazy stuff going on over there now down in Australia, as they're about to have a record wildfire season, and the United States just went through that. And in fact, the reports continue to come out here as the lightning storms sparked apparently 50 fires overnight in Tasmania. It says here, lightning has sparked 50 fires across Tasmania overnight as authorities start a race to extinguish them before the next wave of hot weather. A total fire ban was in place for the state's south on Wednesday as temperatures reached more than 35 degrees Celsius at several centers, and while there were no significant problems through the day, the storm that followed put crews on high alert. It says approximately 47 fires started in Bushland by lightning with very little rain. The majority of these fires are in remote areas and do not present a risk to people or homes, so praise God for that. It says many of the fires have burnt out or been extinguished, but aircraft continue to search for blazes not already reported over there. And so the situation is far from being brought under control, according to the experts. And in this piece here from the National Post, originally reported by the Canadian press, it says that the wildfires in Canada broke records in 2015. So we're seeing all kinds of records being broken in terms of wildfires and flooding and different things. And definitely, my friends, this is just more signs of the times. It says here that wildfires broke record in 2015, scorching an area 7 times the size of Toronto. It mentions wildfires scorched a record amount of Canada's national parks last year, the latest in a number of long, hot summers that have almost entirely depleted Parks Canada's firefighting reserve. And it mentions here, in a quote from the Director of Fire Management, Jeff Weir, he said, "We had a very busy fire year. We had more wildfires than normal, and those fires burned larger areas than normal." And it goes on to say that the agency's annual fire report recorded 122 wildfires in 2015 that burned through 4,600 square kilometers, 7 times the area of the city of Toronto. The yearly average is 82. And in 2014, the amount of parkland burned in non-prescribed fires was 3,000 square kilometers. So you can see the uptick from 2014 to 2015 as records were broken. And there's some footage here on the report I'll link you up with, but pretty consistent things going on in many areas around the globe as multiple records being broken in the wildfire seasons of 2015. Meanwhile, fires burning in Africa and Asia are causing high ozone in the tropical Pacific, according to this report here. Moving along, it was reported recently that NASA is creating a planetary defense coordination office that will apparently track meteors headed toward Earth. And, I'm not a big fan of NASA. It's so much corruption, and, you could go on talking about NASA. This isn't a video for that. But what I say NASA stands for is never a straight answer. However, the report goes on to talk about how, why is NASA suddenly so concerned about meteors and asteroids hitting the Earth? After telling us that no large object is likely to strike the Earth anytime in the next several hundred years, that was a report that was released last year. NASA is apparently now spending millions of dollars to set up a planetary defense coordination office that will be headed up by a designated planetary defense officer. According to NASA, more than 13,500 near-Earth objects have been found so far, and another 1,500 new near-Earth objects are being discovered each year. Approximately 10% of all near-Earth objects are 1 kilometer or larger in size, and if one of those giant space rocks ever hit us, it would likely be considered an extinction-level event. It makes sense that NASA would be concerned about this threat, but why now? This announcement apparently came on Friday, and very few news outlets covered it, but there was a report on CNBC, and so this piece goes on to talk a little bit more about that, and I'll go ahead, I'll link you up to it in the description box below. But I just thought it was a nice segue into the next couple pieces, talking about meteors and fireballs that were spotted, and we'll look at some footage here. And in this first report here, we see a huge meteor fireball lit up the sky over Argentina, And we got some footage here for you. I don't know, I think that's just a photo. Yeah, that's just a photo here, but this is footage. And so I'll play it for you. And that is massive. And it looks like it definitely, well, it looks like it may have even reached land. Or maybe not. It looks like it burns out. However, a pretty nice shot there, that one. And apparently down in Snellville, Georgia, there was a mysterious fireball spotted in the sky on Monday, and it says here, people all across the metro Atlanta area reported seeing a large fireball streak through the sky Monday afternoon over Snellville and Winder. And it says here that several WSB-TV viewers submitted images and video to Severe Weather Team 2 meteorologist Glenn Burns of the object, which was spotted around 3:45 p.m., and here's one of those images here. You can see a shot of it, and it looks pretty crazy. But according to this Glenn Burns fella here, he says, we have a mystery on our hands. He says he knows some people who know some people. He said we'll find out something soon. Apparently he checked the radar data and nothing was visible on the radar. He says we know there was something in the sky. It was not a meteor, he says. We might have something tomorrow after we have a chance to check some sources. Stay tuned. But he goes on to say, Glenn spoke to officials at the Telus Science Museum in Cartersville who say they believe the mysterious fireball is space debris, but so far no one has officially determined what it was. And he gave a last little update here, saying that after doing some research today, folks at Telus believe it might have been space debris. Others say it was moving too slowly for space debris. And it says to him, it looks like a jet aircraft condensation trail. However, no other jet aircraft in the area were leaving contrails yesterday. Perplexing, but still working on it. So this thing still remains a mystery here on what it was. It could have been space debris. It could have been, who knows what it could have been. I can only speculate, but just wanted to include it here in the report. Another sighting here of a apparent meteor sighting that was filmed over Hungary. And I'll go ahead and play the footage for you here. As you can see, this was from yesterday, and you can see the shot of it over there in the corner, just kind of going through the sky. And I believe they have a couple other shots of it here. Yeah, there we go. And you can see this meteor burning up in the Earth's atmosphere as it... So I'll go ahead and I'll link you guys up with this piece as well. And in an update on the whole massive gas blowout and methane leak that began over in LA, according to this piece here from Energy News, who's been on top of this event, according to TV reports, they're saying radioactive material is reportedly now being released from this massive gas blowout in LA. It says it's a byproduct of uranium, and uranium is very deadly. If you look into that and you do your research, one of the most deadliest things out there, and according to an expert, he says a lot has been detected in the area, and it's very dangerous, and it may be coming up from the ground into people's homes. According to another official, was quoted as saying that the levels can cause significant long-term health effects. And so I'll go ahead, link you guys up to these all kinds of different reports here linked up from the LA Times and the LA Daily News and other areas. But we read a little bit here. It says their animals are dying, their fish are dying their fish are dying in their fish bowls, their dogs are dying, their cats are getting sick, and their children are getting sick. They're suffering nosebleeds, they're suffering terrible, debilitating migraine headaches, asthma attacks, respiratory infections, eye infections, ear infections, stomach ailments. The health impact, it's not just methane coming out of that hole, he says. This is a global crisis, he goes on to say. More importantly, this is a local crisis. Because not only do you have methane, you have benzene, toluene, xylene, which are carcinogenic, and you have hydrogen sulfide, sulfur dioxide, which are neurotoxic, which can injure your brain, affect memory, injure your kidneys, your liver, your other bodily organs. There's also a lot of radon gas being measured in the area. People believe, we don't know if this is true, but the gas that is leaking at 2 miles deep is now coming out and pushing that radon up into people's living rooms, their bedrooms, and their nurseries. And that's just one report here, and you can read the rest of them. They're all linked up in the piece if you want to go ahead and check that out. But pretty disturbing stuff, and you know what? My prayers go out to the people over there in the affected area over there in LA. I know it's a highly populated area as well. In fact, in this another more recent report just from a couple days ago on this whole LA situation, it says here, according to the experts, that multiple types of radioactive material is constantly being emitted from this LA gas blowout. And this expert is quoted as saying that he'd be running like hell. And it says we are getting higher and higher levels. It's accumulating. Poisons are spreading through the entire San Fernando Valley, which is home to 2 million people. It says thousands are getting sick. It really is a major, major disaster. And so there's links to many pieces and some audio and from some of these experts in the press conference they held. So I'll link you guys up with that. But let's lift the people of LA in that San Fernando Valley area up in prayer. That if they need to get out of there, that may God lead them out of there, and I just pray all their families and their children are safe, because this seems to be something that is far from over, and it's just a catastrophic event going on over there in LA. So from Los Angeles, we're going to transition over to Michigan, over in Flint. I had been reporting in my previous update on how the contaminated water situation over there was causing lead poisoning in children, leading to brain damage in children, and many other things. And in this most recent report here, down in Flint, Michigan, we see that an outbreak of Legionnaire's disease and water contamination has been occurring over there, and many are linking the Legionnaire's disease to the water contamination. And they've actually called in the National Guard to assist with the whole situation. And it says, as Flint, Michigan residents continue to deal with a state of emergency declared over their contaminated water supply, a sharp increase in cases of an atypical pneumonia known as Legionnaire's disease has hit the community. On Wednesday, state officials hosted a press conference acknowledging the uptick in the cases of Legionnaire's disease, but gave no new advice to the public regarding water usage, saying they have yet to determine the cause of the disease outbreak. And the experts are saying that there's more analysis to come and what have you. But it says between when this has been going on over there, that there were between June and November of 2015, there were 87 cases of Legionnaire's disease in Flint, with 10 ending in death, according to Wells. The fatality rate for the disease ranges from 5 to 30%, depending on access to antibiotics and other factors, according to the U.S. National Library of Medicine. It goes on to say here, the source of the drinking water in Flint was changed from Lake Huron to the Flint River back in April of 2014, and these uptick in Legionnaire's cases have occurred between June 2014 and November of 2015. They haven't even updated it recently. So it goes on to say that although the river was sent to a city water treatment plant, its salt levels were overlooked, causing the lead pipes to corrode. The changeover was noticed by residents right away. Though they complained of bad tastes and smells after the changeover, the Department of Environmental Quality only conceded its failure in October of 2015. The DEQ had not added the chemicals necessary to combat erosion in the pipes, leaving the water to dissolve lead, a poisonous metal, and this is what's leading to the lead poisoning in the children over there. And as I showed you in my last update on this, it's causing brain damage in these kids. Very severe, and my prayers go out to these people as well. In fact, in this piece here, we see that the outbreak of deadly disease hits Michigan City, rocked by poison water supply. And this piece goes on to talk about how they're linking this outbreak to this contaminated water issue over there. And it goes on to talk more about that. I'll give you a link to the piece, which talks about it more in depth, but definitely a very terrible situation over there in Michigan, over in Flint. And speaking of deadly disease outbreaks, I had been reporting in a few videos back on the Zika virus outbreak that had occurred. I believe it was in Brazil, if I'm not mistaken. It's hard for me to remember. I look at so much stuff every day. But here we see from the New York Times that a Hawaii baby with brain damage is the first U.S. case tied to this Zika virus. And, I mean, that's unfortunate. A poor baby is infected with this thing. But it says here the first case of brain damage linked to the Zika virus within the United States was reported on Friday in Hawaii. It says the Hawaii Department of Health said that a baby born in an Oahu hospital with microcephaly, and an unusually small head and brain, had been infected with the Zika virus, which is believed to have caused the same damage in thousands of babies in Brazil in recent months. The presence of the virus was confirmed by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The child's mother had lived in Brazil in May last year and probably was infected by a mosquito then, early in her pregnancy, the health department said. The virus presumably reached the embryo and damaged its developing brain. And, you know, that's just, that's sad stuff. And, you know, I mean, my prayers go out to the family. And it goes on to say in the piece that it says, we are saddened by the events that have affected this mother and her newborn, according to Dr. Sarah Park's statements. And so it goes on to say here, also on Friday, the CDC recommended that pregnant women consider postponing travel to any countries or regions with active Zika virus transmission. And it says those currently include 14 Latin American and Caribbean countries and territories, including Brazil, Colombia, El Salvador, French Guiana, Guatemala, Haiti, Honduras, Martinique, Mexico, Panama, Paraguay, Suriname, Venezuela, and the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. The list of countries with transmission has been steadily growing. On Saturday, Barbados reported its first cases as well. And as I usually do, my friends, I finish off with a Hosea 4:3 prophecy update on the mass animal die-offs. And Hosea 4:3 tells us, it says, therefore shall the land mourn, and every one that dwelleth therein shall languish, with the beasts of the field, and with the fowls of heaven. Yea, the fishes of the sea also shall be taken away. And that's what we're seeing, my friends, in a consistent trend that has been increasing, is the fowls of the earth, and the beasts of the field, and the fishes of the sea are all perishing, being taken away. And this first piece here talks about how tens of thousands of birds were killed due to the avian flu in various areas of Taiwan. I'll link you up to the piece. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go into each area and how much was reported in each area. The link will be below. But it says that there were 10 more outbreaks of this highly pathogenic avian influenza that have been reported in Taiwan. And for those of you who don't know, that is the bird flu. And so I'll link you up with that piece. I got a lot more die-offs to report on here, unfortunately. But it is a sign of the times, my friends. And Jesus said, as I always say, he mentioned, when he was mentioning these signs in Matthew 24, he said, see that you're not troubled, for all these things must come to pass. And then in Luke 21, he says, when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. And this is why it's so important that we discern the signs of the times, my friends, because Jesus said himself the importance of discerning the signs of the times in the Gospel of Matthew and Luke. And we're told to watch and pray. And so that's what we do as we discern these signs of the times. And let's just get to the next piece here. And here in this report, we see that there's tens of thousands of dead starfish and jellyfish that washed up along Sussex and Hampshire over in England. And so another mass die-off there. And it goes on to talk about in the piece how stormy weather was the cause behind this, what they say, bizarre apocalyptic scene. Another report here of a mass die-off, or culling, if you will, due to the bird flu, as 330,000 plus birds were killed due to this avian flu, or the bird flu, in Kano and Delta regions over in Nigeria. And this is a report from Florida down in the U.S. talking about how, as the title says here, hundreds of dead fish washed up in the Gulf port over there. Now, the title says hundreds, but when you read the piece and the quotes from the people and some of the experts that were doing the testing, they mention, and here's a quote here from one of the experts, it says, there's thousands of dead fish. And he says thousands literally in our cove right here. And there were other quotes from residents, and one person said, when it first happened, it looked like snow, honestly. All of the whole top of the water was covered, she said. So, and you see a shot of this here. So more reports of fish die-offs there in relation to Hosea 4:3 prophecy. In Hawke's Bay, New Zealand, there were hundreds of dead fish and eels found in a lake. And again, this was over in Hawke's Bay, down in New Zealand. Another bird flu outbreak, this one over in the Kano state of Nigeria, which is I know I had already reported on one over in that area, but this is one that was reported a few days later. And in the first one, there was 330,000 birds killed. And in this one, there was 700,000 birds killed due to another outbreak of the bird flu over there. Bird flu outbreak over in Scotland as well, as 40,000 chickens were to be killed due to this avian flu or bird flu over in Fife, Scotland. More on the bird flu here, as 10,000 ducks were killed due to more outbreaks of the avian flu over in Taipei, Taiwan. Meanwhile, there was an apocalyptic cuttlefish mass die-off in Chile, and apparently it's unexplained, as thousands of cuttlefish mysteriously washed up on the Santa Maria off of Coronel, Chile on January the 12th. And according to this report here, it says that the cause of this event remains unexplained. And you could see here, there's a picture of the shoreline just doused with dead cuttlefish. There was also a mass death event of giant squid off the coast of Chile, and it says here that there were 10,000 plus dead squid that washed ashore for an unknown reason in Arauco, Chile. Meanwhile, over in Zimbabwe, 7,000 cattle died due to drought over there, in a pretty severe situation. As it says, severe water shortages are also affecting the Midlands and the Matabeleland South. And it says here, as South Africa shoulders its own major water crisis, other countries in the region haven't been spared the hardships of the El Nino-induced drought. In Zimbabwe, according to reports, around 7,000 cattle have died in the southern provinces. And here's a report from Energy News talking about a TV report that mentions how carcasses are actually littering beaches for miles on the Pacific coast of Alaska. And this expert is quoted as saying that it's a complete reproductive failure, that it's horrifying, mind-boggling, and off the charts. He said this is an unprecedented die-off, and it has the potential to be the biggest mortality event in state history. He says it's the most extreme he's ever seen. And when you look into the piece here, there's links to the Associated Press article, KTVA, the Alaska Journal of Commerce, the Alaska Dispatch News, and so you're linked up to all these pieces, and you can look at all the reports yourself. But pretty apocalyptic scene over there in the Pacific coast of Alaska. One thing I've been reporting on, too, in regards to these mass animal die-offs is the mass whale die-offs that have been going on around the world, and I've only been covering the mass death events that involved multiple whales. There's been all kinds of singular events where one whale washed up in one area and two whales over here and another one over there. So I haven't even been reporting on those because I like to focus on just the mass death events. As I believe those are more relevant to the Hosea 4:3 prophecy of these end times. And this piece here was released about 4 days ago, talking about how more than 80 whales washed ashore on India's southern coast. And more recent reports that have come out from the area talk about how it was actually more along the lines of 100 whales washing ashore over in Tamil Nadu off the coast of India there. And of those, 45 of them were dead. And in an update to that last piece, here we see more whales have washed ashore over there as experts have begun an investigation. And it says here the phenomenon of whales being washed ashore continues as 11 more whales died on Wednesday. The count is apparently increasing, as they say here, and it goes on to say, seeing the alarming increase of deaths, officials rushed to the spot and sought help of more fishermen into the rescue service as they fear that the death count might increase. And over in Germany, there was an unusual stranding of two giant sperm whales on the same beach at Wangerooge. And it says here 2 sperm whales have washed up together on the German North Sea coast. The double stranding of sperm whales took place on the shores of Wangerooge, an island off Germany's North Sea coast, and is an unusual event. It is thought that the pair may have got lost and mistakenly moved into shallow waters between Britain and Europe, where their navigational sonar may not have worked as efficiently as it would have in the deeper ocean. Another 5 sperm whales also died after stranding on a Dutch beach, but it is not known if they were from the same group. Sperm whales can reach over 18 meters in length and are one of the deepest diving mammals in the world. And this is the report on the 5 sperm whales that died on the Dutch beach, which is Texel Beach, and in the Netherlands. And so here's a report on that. And on that Dutch beach over in the Netherlands, this is an update that was released a couple days ago, talking about how 2 more sperm whales were found dead on the same beach. So these are all more signs of the times, my friends. And as I was saying before, Jesus said in Matthew 16 that people can discern the face of the sky, but they cannot discern the signs of the times. And he talked in Luke 12, saying that you can discern the face of the sky and of the earth, but how is it that you do not discern the times? And we're told in scriptures to watch and pray. And Jesus said, like I mentioned, to not be troubled, because these things need to come to pass. The Word of God prophesies this. And it's a result of sin coming into the world. And so as a result, we're going to see these things in the end times, the wars and violence and increased lawlessness, the moral collapse of society, which we're watching in full swing in the headlines today, droughts and famines and and earthquakes in diverse places, and other natural disasters, disease epidemics, and plagues and pestilences, and so forth. These are some of the signs of the end times, my friends, that Jesus said would precede his second coming. So it's important today that if you don't know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, I advise you and I urge you with all my heart to seek him wholeheartedly, and you will find him just like his holy word says, because Jesus is the only way. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. So I pray today that you're one of the few on that straight and narrow path into eternal life in heaven, my friends. Until next time, I'm Evangelist Joey Bellmore. God bless you. Greetings, my friends. Evangelist Joey Bellmore here once again for another Signs of the Times report. And in this report, we're going to focus on some of the earth changes going on around the world that line up with what the biblical scriptures say would happen in the end times before Jesus' return. And a lot of these signs Jesus mentioned in Matthew 24, and they are mentioned in other scriptures as well. But we're going to start, as we always do, with the earthquakes. And we're going to go over some of the most recent earthquakes in diverse places since my last report. And starting with this piece, talking about a magnitude 5.3 earthquake that struck over in eastern Taiwan. There was also a 5 magnitude earthquake that struck central Turkey, and praise God, no casualties were reported. There was also a 5.0 magnitude earthquake that occurred down in the South Pacific near the Fiji Islands, according to the U.S. Geological Survey report. And over here on the Manila Bulletin, we see that there was a 4.9 earthquake that shook Davao over in the Philippines. And before we move on to anything else, as I always do, I'm going to slide over here to the European Mediterranean Seismological Center website and look at the latest earthquakes from around the world that are magnitude 4 or greater that may have happened in the past 24 hours. And we see here that there were multiple earthquakes reported, and you can see them all here. There was a 5.2 in La Rioja, Argentina. There was a 4.7 over in the Iceland region, as well as a 4.5. So a couple significant quakes over there in Iceland, and a 5.1 down in the Fiji region, as you see there. There was also a 5.2 in southern Sumatra, Indonesia, 5.0 in the Solomon Islands, and of course a 5.5 in Seram, Indonesia. And that's about all we have in terms of significant seismic activity there. So we'll go ahead and we'll move along here. But as usual, everything will be linked up below in the description box for you guys. And it's important to remember that Jesus said that this would be one of the signs that would precede his coming in Matthew 24. He said that there would be earthquakes in diverse places. And I would presume that, these earthquakes are only going to intensify as we grow closer and closer to that great day, my friends. And so moving on, we see in this piece here from ABC News, a local news agency out of La Jolla, California, that a large sinkhole developed over there near the seawall. And I'll link you up to this piece. There's news coverage on it where they show you a little bit of footage. But it goes on to say here that a large sinkhole developed near a seawall in the La Jolla Shores area Thursday morning after a series of storms pummeled the region. The 10-foot wide sinkhole developed sometime before 5 a.m. at the bottom of the Avenida de la Playa and Camino del Oro across from the La Jolla Beach and Tennis Club. So it mentions that both City of San Diego and San Diego Gas and Electric crews were on the scene working to repair it. Apparently they're going to have to build a new gas line to divert service in the area away from the hole. That's how significant this is and how serious it's become. And it says because of the tide flowing in and the next storm coming Friday as well. Iceland, at a volcanic caldera, there were a couple earthquakes detected over there, and both measured 3.2 on the Richter scale, as we see here in this report. And they happened down in the southeastern part of the Barabanga caldera. And this is a stratovolcano located below a Vatnajökull glacier, which is Iceland's largest ice cap. And the globe just continues to shake. As we see here, another 5.0 magnitude earthquake was registered down near the Solomon Islands. A little bit more powerful seismic activity here with a 6.9 magnitude earthquake that occurred just off the coast of the Philippines. Another 6+ magnitude earthquake here that was recorded just off the Japanese coast. And in this report, we see a 4.6 magnitude earthquake that struck Iran, and the tremors were felt all the way in Azerbaijan at 3.0 magnitude, as we see here in this piece. Here is a 5.9 magnitude earthquake that was reported and recorded in the southern Indian Ocean along the southwest Indian Ridge. Another 5.1 magnitude earthquake reported here. This one registered just off the coast of Indonesia, or just outside of Indonesia, if you will, northwest of Tabelo. Here we see a report of a 5.6 magnitude earthquake which jolted parts of Pakistan and Afghanistan in the late hours of Tuesday, according to this report here. And a whole lot of shaking going on around the world is right. Another report here, this one, a 5.8 magnitude earthquake, recorded just northwest of Tonga. Just south of Arica, Chile, we see that there were reports of a 5.0 magnitude earthquake, which was recorded there. And in this article from RT, we see that a strong 6.7 magnitude earthquake struck southeast of Japan's northern island of Hokkaido, according to the country's meteorological agency. And down in Santa Cruz, Bolivia, just southwest of Charagua, we see that there was a 6.1 magnitude earthquake recorded there.